All right, Ez, do we have a Raven today?
Yeah, we got a Raven. So let's see here. Today's Raven, and I told you guys to stick around for this. Let me just find it real quick. This is it's actually a short one. All right. So our Raven today is from Lady Liz of House Ives, and it's literally just a question, and I want to get Sir Matt's thoughts on this. So, if Sansa does find Jeyne Poole, does Jeyne expose Littlefinger as the one who turns her into a whore? And I was like, so, Lady Liz, what was more interesting to me was the idea that when would Sansa come back across Jeyne Poole? When does Sansa meet up with her? And so Jeyne, Arya, air quote Arya, who is, that whole piece, right, is sent up to Winterfell and passes as Arya because she can talk about the servants, the cooks, and who was there, knows people, etc. The other thing, though, is you got to imagine, again, a lot of them were killed, so never mind. But can very easily pass as Arya for people who don't know Arya or Jeyne. But she's rescued. Jeyne gets away with Theon. We know in a Winds of Winter preview chapter that she's being sent back to the Wall with Jon, and Sansa is still in the Vale. And we've got a little tournament going on there where Sweet Robin is trying to get his air quote King's Guard, Lord's Guard, whatever you want to call it, to surround him. So, for that to happen, if that's going to be kind of almost like, I don't even know if that's a Winds of Winter prediction, if that's not something even further down the line, because they're just so far away from each other. And I do think Jon is coming south at some point, so she could come south with him, perhaps. But she's still on her way up to see Jon. But I do think that we are going to learn more, that she does have some of the answers, and she does know some of what took place at King's Landing behind Sansa's back, who was plotting, who was moving her around, and that could be revealed, and that could help Sansa kind of see. I think she's starting to realize who Littlefinger is and what he's all about, and she understands how to play this game better. She's learned from Cersei, and she's growing. But yeah, we may need Jeyne Poole to actually tell us what's going on here with Littlefinger and others. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, this goes back to our question of, wow, the piece of the, this is so centered around the Stannis, the Stannis question of does Stannis win, does he lose, how does that impact Jon, and then Sansa still being that big outlier, right? So Jeyne Poole, if she goes down something similar to what we see with Sansa in the show, Jeyne Poole showing up to Winterfell could just kind of inform a now resurrected Jon, let's say, of what happened at Winterfell. Maybe she just goes to the Wall because she thinks they'll protect her there, right? Hey, and then she runs into Jon, and Jon's like, oh, okay, he knows Jeyne Poole, and so then that's what causes Jon to go down that route. And then you could think maybe Sansa just rides in with the Knights of the Vale. Things go similarly, and then Sansa rides in with the Knights of the Vale towards the end of a Battle of the Bastards, if that were to take place. And so then you could have a Sansa Jeyne Poole a situation there, right, where they run into each other, and then maybe it's not Arya and Sansa teaming up to depose Littlefinger. It could be Sansa getting rid of him with, Knights of the Vale or people at Winterfell or whatever. And maybe that is because, we looked at some of that stuff with Arya in season 7, and it's the first time in Game of Thrones when I was like, I don't think we have any idea what's going on, with them. And maybe that's actually supposed to be Sansa and Jeyne Poole scenes. They're close childhood friends. And then you could have Arya go off, do whatever, take more names off her list, which I think is likely. And then you have Arya run into a Lady Stoneheart, right? And so then you can kind of get that. That's maybe how you move Lady Stoneheart out of the picture, is because she actually runs into Arya. So there's a character who we've talked about what's going to go on with her. So if you kind of take Jeyne Poole, she goes over, serves as Sansa for a bit. Sansa still shows up at the Battle of the Bastards, and then saves the day. Not her feuding with Jon, but she just shows up because she knows it's going to happen, and I want to go help this fight. And then it's almost like rather than it being like, oh, I told you so, like you're lucky I did all this stuff. It's kind of she comes in to save the day, which I think it'd be a cool different way to do it. And then you can have Arya kind of do her own thing, and then you can still get to relatively the same place, but you just move some other, you use some of the pieces you have with these different characters, and then you can then give Arya something to do that takes care of another character, Lady Stoneheart, who we are like, something's got to happen with her, otherwise you're in this big stall, if it is at all going to relatively mirror something similar to what we saw in the show.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, so if you're a showrunner and you heard that a character who is Jeyne Poole but was pretending to be Arya, well, we don't have that character, so let's just use Arya and thrust Arya into that role, and she and Sansa will, that friendship that'll be back, because Sansa and Jeyne Poole are, they could have that little, like, they know each other so well, and they're such good friends that you could see sort of like Jeyne is picking up on these little kind of body language cues or some secret language or whatever, kind of like what Lysa and Catelyn have, their secret kind of understanding, their code, their whatever, in the opening of Game of Thrones. Like, they could have something like that, and it could be something they use to work against Littlefinger. Once Jeyne kind of tells her, hey, this is what's up. The crazy thing is, and I know Sir Matt just tried to do it, which is to take us across the map and say, how do we actually get Jeyne Poole back to Sansa? I don't know that yet, because I think you're right. I think at least it would probably, it's more likely to happen that they would be meeting up in Winterfell. I don't see a reason for Jeyne to ever go down to the Vale or even want to go to the Vale. So, like that makes more sense for Sansa to meet her there, which then means that maybe Littlefinger is up there at Winterfell and is and maybe it makes a lot of sense because he's working towards Harry the Heir from the Vale. Making an alliance between him and Sansa, and then work up towards Winterfell. I just don't know about the Battle of the Bastards, which we go back and forth on all the time. Like,
right? I'm just saying, in a way to try to get, as this person said, to Sansa find Jeyne Poole. Well, if I try to piece it together in a way that could make sense, I think that'd be one way to go, given the information we have in the books and a possible outline to some extent of what we have in the show. Yeah, and I think that then it's always interesting. It always comes back to Stannis, and does he win versus Ramsay, lose versus Bolton, or I'm sorry, Roose. Just all real interesting. So yeah, it's a great question, and I like thinking about that because Littlefinger definitely found a place for Jeyne Poole, and it was a terrible place. She suffered through a lot, and I think she's gonna have a lot to tell Sansa later on. So it's a good